All right, ready for the deep dive? This time we're going way back. Ancient Sumeria, where let's just say the gods aren't exactly what you'd call, well, nice. And the heroes, they're a bit rough around the edges, to say the least. We're looking at the Epic of Gilgamesh. But not like, your typical boring ancient myth. Think of it more like a really early form of satire, like a sneak peek behind the curtain of how power really works. Sumerian style, of course. You sent in a lecture about Gilgamesh, so we're going to focus on the parts that are, well, let's just say questionable. See if we can find some humor in it, for those of you who, like me, maybe aren't totally buying the official story.
It's interesting. Sumerian myths, they're a lot more grounded than later ones. More cynical, even. They don't try to hide the messy parts or the not-so-noble motivations.
Exactly. It's not all rainbows and sunshine and, divine benevolence or whatever. So let's set the scene. We've got the Anunnaki, these beings from a planet called Nibiru, and they show up on Earth. For one reason, gold. Not exactly a friendly visit, right?
More like a cosmic mining expedition. They needed workers, so they created some. First, they tried reptilian beings. Then they, upgraded, I guess you could say, to humans. Specifically the Lemurians, a more, well, godlike version of us.
Full-on reptilian beings.
Yeah.
Was that like a bad batch of prototypes or something?
Yeah.
Before they got to humans. I mean, it's almost like they're trying to make the gods look kind of incompetent,
Oh, it's definitely a detail that makes you wonder. And let's not forget, the Sumerians were pretty upfront about, the purpose of humans. We're here to work, basically, to dig up all that lovely gold for our extraterrestrial overlords. Not exactly the most flattering origin story.
No kidding. Later myths tried to spin it as some kind of divine love and all that. But the Sumerian version is refreshingly honest, I guess. Maybe that honesty is the first hint of satire, right? They're not trying to sugarcoat it.
Exactly. It makes you look at these powerful beings, these gods, with a more critical eye. Are they really as wise and benevolent as they want us to believe?
Okay, so now we come to Gilgamesh, our hero. 2/3 god, 1/3 human, king destined for greatness, or so he thinks. The Sumerian king list says he ruled for, get this, 126 years.
Which, you think about it, is pretty short, considering his father ruled for 1,000 years. Talk about a rapid decline in lifespan.
It's almost like the gods were saying, okay, we made these powerful humans, but let's not let them get too comfortable. But
yeah,
the thing about Gilgamesh is he's obsessed with his legacy, wants that divine recognition, to be seen as an equal to the gods. So he works his people to the bone, builds giant cities, acts like a total tyrant, basically.
Classic overcompensation, right? The gods, well, they weren't exactly thrilled, annoyed by his striving, maybe even a little afraid of what he could do.
So what do? Send in Enkidu, the wild man, to teach Gilgamesh a lesson. The classic nature versus civilization thing.
Yeah.
But here's the twist. Enkidu gets tamed by a woman.
Of course. What's a good myth without that?
But instead of the big showdown everyone's expecting, Gilgamesh and Enkidu, they become best buds. They decide to go after Humbaba, guardian of the cedar forest. And let's be real, Humbaba's description. Straight out of some kind of mythical creature mashup, lion head, eagle claws, dragon body, scorpion tail.
Subtlety wasn't exactly the Sumerians' strong suit.
It's like they threw every scary creature they could think of into a blender and said, let's see what happens. But, Gilgamesh and Enkidu, fueled by bromance and ambition, they take down this ridiculous beast.
Which, as you can imagine, didn't exactly help Gilgamesh's ego.
Right. He's feeling pretty good about himself. Until Inanna, goddess of love and war, decides she wants to marry him. Now, anyone who knows Inanna knows she's not exactly known for her stable relationship.
Well, let's just say she's known for her passionate nature, which often leads to, shall we say, unfortunate outcomes for her mortal lovers.
Gilgamesh wisely declines her offer. I got to give him credit. We want to be on Inanna's bad side.
Definitely playing with fire there. Inanna, enraged, humiliated, runs to Daddy Anu. And the gods decide to punish Gilgamesh. They send Gugulana, the bull of heaven.
Wait, they send a bull? I mean, it's a divine bull and all, but still, a bull seems kind of anticlimactic for, a god-killing machine.
Maybe. But here's where that Sumerian sense of humor really comes in. Gilgamesh and Enkidu, they kill the bull of heaven. And just to add insult to injury, Enkidu throws a severed bull leg at Inanna.
Okay, that's just straight up disrespect. He was asking for it?
He certainly was. That little act of defiance threw the whole divine realm into chaos. The gods were terrified. Not because of a bull leg, of course, but because humans had just proven that they could defeat divine beings.
So what happens next? Do the gods just admit defeat, pack their bags, and head back to Nibiru?
Not quite. They call a council meeting to discuss the situation. And what's really interesting here is that they decide to make an example of someone, but not Gilgamesh. They choose Enkidu.
Wait, what? Enkidu? But he was just the sidekick, just following his bro?
Exactly. And his death is almost comically simple. A divine curse. Poof, he's gone. It's like the gods were saying, look, we can take you out anytime we want, with a snap of our fingers.
It's kind of pathetic, actually, these all-powerful gods.
Yeah.
Reduced to petty revenge tactics.
It definitely doesn't make them look very authoritative, does it?
But this is where Gilgamesh's journey changes. For the first time, he's face-to-face with death. Realizes that even demigods aren't immortal.
And this realization sends him on a quest to cheat death, to find the secret to eternal life.
But we'll save that part of the story for after a quick break. Stay tuned.
So, we left off Gilgamesh facing his own mortality for the first time after, well, the death of his best friend. Quite a wake-up call for someone who thought he was practically a god himself.
Right, talk about a reality check. And it sends him on this desperate quest for immortality. He's not just going to accept Enkidu's fate. He's going to find a way to cheat death, even if it means going to the ends of the earth.
Which is exactly what he does. Gilgamesh sets out to find Utnapishtim, the Sumerian Noah. This guy. He survived the Great Flood, and the gods granted him eternal life. Seems like the perfect person to ask for immortality advice.
Yeah, like, hey, so how'd you manage to get that sweet deal with the gods? Asking for a friend. Oh, and that friend happens to be a demigod. But wait a minute, didn't the Sumerians also have a flood myth? Isn't that a little convenient?
Maybe, but also pretty revealing. The Sumerian flood myth, it's actually older than the biblical version, and it offers a much more, how should I put this, pragmatic explanation for the whole cataclysmic event.
Okay, I'm listening. What's the Sumerian reason for the gods wiping out humanity? Was it all the usual stuff, wickedness, disobedience,
Nope. No moralizing here. According to Sumerian myth, the gods were just annoyed by all the noise and chaos created by too many humans. Remember, humans were created to be workers, but they multiplied a bit too enthusiastically for the gods' liking.
So basically, a divine noise complaint. Like, hey, you humans are getting too loud. Time for a cosmic reset.
Pretty much. A far cry from the wrathful, righteous god we see in later flood narratives. The Sumerian gods. They're more like irritable landlords dealing with a noisy tenant problem. It makes you wonder if they were trying to, subtly critique the whole idea of divine power.
I love it. It's like they're making fun of the whole divine punishment thing.
Yeah.
But back to Gilgamesh. Does he get any immortality tips from Utnapishtim, this flood-surviving, eternally useful dude?
Well, not exactly. Utnapishtim explains that his immortality, it was a one-time deal, a reward for, saving humanity and all the animals from the flood. It's not something Gilgamesh can just replicate.
Oh, bummer. Talk about a letdown. But I bet Gilgamesh doesn't give up that easily.
You're right about that. Utnapishtim may be feeling a little sorry for Gilgamesh. Tells him about a plant at the bottom of the ocean. That can restore youth. It's not immortality, but it's the next best thing.
So, of course, Gilgamesh dives right in. I can just picture him braving sea monsters and who knows what else, all for this magical seaweed.
He does. He gets the plant. But then, in a moment of pure comedic irony, a snake steals it while he's taking a bath.
A snake, seriously. All that effort, all that danger. And he loses the plant of youth to a bath-loving serpent.
It's almost too perfect, isn't it? Like, you can practically hear the Sumerian scribes chuckling as they wrote that part. It's like they're saying, even demigods can't escape fate. Or, sneaky snakes.
There's definitely a lesson in there somewhere. Maybe it's about the futility of chasing impossible dreams. Or maybe it's just a reminder that even in ancient myths, bath time can be dangerous.
Perhaps a bit of both. But what's really interesting is how this whole episode makes Gilgamesh look kind of silly. He's supposed to be this powerful, godlike figure, yet he gets outsmarted by a snake.
It makes him seem more human, I guess, more relatable, even in his ridiculous quest for eternal life. But what happens next? Does he just give up and go back to ruling Uruk with his tail between his legs?
He does return to Uruk, but not defeated. He realizes he can't escape death, but he can leave a lasting legacy. He focuses on being a good king, a just ruler.
So he finally gets it. True immortality isn't about living forever. It's about the impact you have on the world, the things you leave behind.
Exactly. And that's where the real satire comes in. Gilgamesh, this ambitious, power-hungry demigod, finds fulfillment not in conquering death, but in serving his people, It's a pretty subversive message, especially for an audience used to stories about heroic exploits and divine favor.
Okay, I'm starting to see the pattern here. The Sumerians weren't just telling stories. They were using myth too, like critique power, question the status quo. And they did it with this sly sense of humor, a wink and a nod to those who were paying attention.
Precisely. That's what makes these myths so fascinating. They're not just tales of gods and monsters. They're reflections on the human condition, our desires, our fears, our constant struggle with power.
And they're doing it in a way that still makes us laugh, thousands of years later. But we're not done yet. There's one more layer of Sumerian satire we need to unpack, and it involves a very important legal document and a god with a strong sense of justice.
Intrigued. We'll delve into that right after a quick break. So we were talking about a legal document and a god with a strong sense of justice.
Yeah. Fill me in. What's the connection to all this satire we've been discussing?
Well, remember that divine council meeting where they decided to, get rid of Enkidu? There was one god who disagreed, Shamash, the god of justice.
Shamash, wasn't he the one who gave Hammurabi that famous law code?
That's the one, the Code of Hammurabi, a Babylonian legal text. It actually predates the Bible, but it has a lot of those eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth kind of principles. And it's full of these really specific punishments, almost comical, some of them.
So they say the Sumerian sense of humor, their willingness to, critique the gods, extended their legal system too.
It's an interesting thought, right?
Yeah.
People often see the Code of Hammurabi as brutal, but some scholars think it was actually meant to limit violence, to prevent those endless cycles of revenge.
Okay, so instead of a blood feud, you get this very structured, almost bureaucratic system of you chopped off my hand, so I get to chop off yours. It's like they took that divine tendency for it.
Yeah.
Over-the-top reactions.
Yeah.
And tried to apply it to human society, but with a legal twist.
And that's where the satire comes in. Are they really promoting justice? Or are they making fun of the whole idea of divine retribution? I mean, some of these laws are so specific, so outlandish. You can't help but wonder if there's a bit of dark humor in there.
It's like they're saying, hey, humans, we know you're messy and dramatic, so here's some rules so ridiculous, you'll either laugh or be too scared to break them.
It definitely gives us a different way of looking at ancient law. It wasn't just about punishment. It was also about social commentary, using humor to highlight the absurdities of human behavior.
It's amazing how all these seemingly unrelated things, a demigod's quest for immortality, a flood myth, a set of ancient laws, all tie back to this theme of satire. Makes you wonder what else we're missing.
That's the beauty of exploring these ancient texts. There's always something new to discover, a different layer of meaning to uncover. The Sumerians. They were masters of using myth and storytelling to challenge conventional wisdom and make us think critically about the world.
They did it all with a wink and a smile. They weren't afraid to point out the flaws in their gods, to question authority, and to find humor, even when faced with life's biggest mysteries.
So, what can we take away from all this, from this deep dive into Sumerian satire?
I think it's a reminder that power, whether it's divine or human, is often built on shaky ground. It's a reminder to question the stories we're told, to look for the humor in the serious stuff, and to never underestimate the power of a good laugh.
The Sumerians, with their flawed gods, their relatable heroes, and their darkly humorous legal codes, they remind us that it's okay to laugh at the absurdities of life, to challenge authority, and to find joy in the unexpected.
They were rebels, satirists, master storytellers, all rolled into one. And their legacy still inspires us to think differently, to question everything, and to find humor in being human, no matter how messy or complicated it gets.
So, the next time you hear a story that sounds too good to be true, or you encounter a system that just feels wrong, or you meet someone in authority who takes themselves way too seriously, remember the Sumerians, remember their wit, their cynicism, and their ability to find humor in the most unexpected places. And maybe, just maybe, you'll find yourself laughing along with them across the vast expanse of time.
And on that note, we come to the end of our deep dive, but the conversation doesn't have to end here. I encourage you to check out the source material, dive deeper into Sumerian myth, and think about what these ancient stories might be telling us about ourselves, about power, and about our never-ending search for meaning in a universe that often seems chaotic and absurd.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and most importantly, keep laughing.
Who knows what other treasures we might find in the depths of human history.